All right. Let's do it. Let's get it started, y'all. So, it is Elijah with the Whole Man Sexual Integrity Coach. What's up? Hope y'all doing well. Let's dive in. So, today we are talking about triggers. Trigger City, baby. I used to always say that when I would get triggered in an argument or something with my wife. I'd be like, Trigger City. Or like something would happen, around certain family members or situations, and it'd be like Trigger City, Trigger City. Anyhow, so we're gonna be dealing with triggers today, and one of the amazing things about being a human being is we've got a prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain. It's our volition, our will, our ability to think, make decisions, and from that we have something called the multiple perspective advantage. So we can zoom outside of ourselves and we can evaluate and observe and think about ourselves. Right? So we can come outside of ourselves and think about ourselves and think about our decisions, our actions, what we do, what we say, and make observations and then make changes based on those observations. And so that's the perspective that we are going to approach this triggers topic with. And so triggers are like it's like that first domino that you press over. It's the catalyst that leads to all the other dominoes falling over. So it's that first one that you press, and then boom, down go all the dominoes. And so the same thing happens when it comes to acting out with pornography, masturbation, acting out, whatever you want to call it. We have triggers, right? These are going to be buttons that get pressed or activated that lead to that behavior. And one important thing to know is it's not always right away. Triggers don't always happen like, oh, I saw this, fine girl, and now, boom, I'm going and lusting and masturbating, thinking about her, right? It's not like that. Sometimes, yeah, sure, it can happen that way, where you can be triggered by something or someone and go from 0 to 100 just like that. But 9 times out of 10, the trigger's already been cooking, right? It's already been brewing. And then you go from 0 to 100 and are confused why in this little moment. But there's been a trigger over here that's been brewing the whole time, or multiple triggers that have now been compiling. And think about it like a cup, right? So if your capacity in the cup, let's say is 8 ounces, well, one trigger happens, and then you got 2 ounces. Another trigger, 3 ounces. Another trigger, you're at 5 ounces. Eventually, that cup is going to get past 8 ounces, and it's all going to come overflowing. And so how people who struggle with pornography and masturbation, that's one of the main ways that the cup starts overflowing, is now we're going and we're seeking relief or comfort or love or thrill or affection, whatever the thing is, we're now seeking that through the pornography and the pleasure and the thrill of pornography. And so we've got to become aware of that cup as it fills up. And the more we become aware of our triggers, then we can get ahead of the curve and be on the prevention side from that cup ever overflowing. And look, life's going to happen. So the cup things are going to get inside the cup. But it's a matter of, are we processing, right? Are we working through things so we can keep so we can maintain our life at a capacity that's sustainable for ourselves. And so we're going to talk about different categories of triggers. And so the first category, which they're mostly all rooted in, like most triggers come back to this category, is emotional, right? So the first category is emotional triggers. So these are going to be unpleasant feelings. We all have a certain emotional capacity based on our development and how processed we are and how we work through things, and also our personality. We all have different emotional capacities, and we have a spectrum of emotions. There are positive or pleasant emotions that feel really good, like joy and satisfaction and thrill and excitement. But then there's emotions that feel unpleasant. So those are going to be like, I know for me, some of my biggest emotional triggers are feeling disrespected. Probably that's for most men. When we feel disrespected, that's a big trigger. For me, feeling misportrayed. Somebody's betraying me or saying things about me in a way that doesn't reflect who I am or my character. Feeling accused. Accused is a big one. Feeling inadequate, right? Like not good enough would be another big trigger. Feeling unappreciated, especially as another big one for men. As we work hard, to provide or to do whatever we do, right? Is we offer our strength, and then our strength isn't appreciated or isn't seen. That can be a big trigger. So unpleasant emotions are going to be triggers for us, and there's different situations that activate those triggers. And so it's really important that we become aware of our own emotions and our own feelings, because if we're not aware, then we're just like going to be acting out. We're going to be struggling, with porn and masturbation, and not know, man, why do I keep doing that? What is it that I'm actually looking for? Because clearly the end result of the porn and the masturbation, that goes against who I am, my values, who I want to be, what I believe, right? And that's why it creates shame. That's why it creates that disconnect, because when you go against yourself, you go against your own values, you go against the spirit of the living God inside of you and your own spirit, then it creates shame, because there's this disconnect and there's this divide. So emotional triggers is, I would say, that the kind of root of everything in terms of understanding triggers, because most of them are going to come back to, man, what are the unpleasant emotions that I'm dealing with that I either am unaware of and have left unchecked, or maybe I'm aware of them but don't know how to work through them, and that's eventually leading me to act out. And so the second category are going to be situational triggers. So these are going to be like, sometimes it's life circumstances, and sometimes it's just things that happen, in a moment. So a life circumstance, like for me, could be, probably for most people, it's going to be money. Whether you have a lot of money or a little bit of money, money can be a big point of tension, especially for men. So for me, right, having financial constraints, right, when my wife and I are living paycheck to paycheck, and the budget's tight, and I don't know how we're going to make ends meet, and then she has desires, or she's feeling afraid and she's feeling insecure because she doesn't know, how we're going to make it or how things are going to work out, and then she's bringing that fear and that anxiety to me, or that insecurity to me, and all of a sudden I start feeling like, oh, she's accusing me. She's saying I'm not good enough. She's saying I'm failing as a husband. I'm failing as a father. And all of a sudden, then now I'm spinning out. And now this circumstance of having financial constraints is now leading me to this internal tension, internal struggle that eventually lead to acting out with pornography. But it won't be that day. It won't be the day that argument happened. It'll be maybe 3 days, 4 days later. And if you're not aware of these things, then when it happens 3 or 4 days later, you're like, what? I'm good. Like, I worked out today. I spent time with friends. Like, I'm feeling really good about life right now. I'm having a great day. Why did I just do that? And it's not realizing, oh no, there were things adding up over time over here on this end of the spectrum that you weren't accounting for. So life circumstances, financial, and like I said, whether you have a little money or a lot of money, we all have different financial constraints and things that negatively affect us if we're not proactive in that area. Deadlines, like just simple as if you're a student, you got a big paper to turn in. When I was in college, it was, instead of procrastination, what was it? Somebody used to always say it, masturbation. I forget. It was like masturbation or something like that, procrastinating through masturbating. But hey, that was a real thing, because you're feeling overwhelmed. You're dealing with, you're feeling challenged or overwhelmed in a way that, hey, I don't have what it takes to do or to conquer the task in front of me. And so I'm going to go press this button over here. That's the escape button, the relief button, the pressure release valve. And if your pressure release valve is something like porn and masturbation, well, then eventually it leads to more shame. It leads to even more inadequacy, because then you lose your confidence, you lose your motivation, and you lose your ability to actually follow through. And then you get caught in that vicious cycle. And so, right, deadlines, work deadlines, different things that create pressure, that create stress, which is not always avoidable. That's going to happen in life. Traveling, that's a life circumstance. If you travel for work, I know a lot of guys who travel for work, and it's a trigger to be in that hotel room by themselves. Maybe it's not their ritual anymore, but it used to be their ritual, that they would flip on the TV, get whatever paid subscriptions to online pornography, adult content, or whip out their laptop, whatever. And so traveling, I know for me, a situational trigger is when my wife goes out of town with the kids, then I'm home alone. And man, it's almost can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you psych yourself out and you're like, okay, I'm going to make it. I'm not going to struggle. I'm going to overcome. All right. And you create all this pressure around it. And it's like, okay, it can just be a matter of fact that, hey, I'm in a vulnerable situation where I'm more susceptible because I have more alone time. So how do I want to fill that time? How do I want to make a plan to make sure I'm connected with other guys, that I am doing things with my time that I actually want to do, because I actually really enjoy being alone. I really enjoy having nights to myself, being able to read, to pray, to FaceTime friends, to watch movies. Like, I never get to watch movies that often. And if I do, it's like, rom-coms or chick flicks with my wife. Or I like to watch documentaries, but she doesn't usually want to watch those. So, like, if I want to watch Endgame Avengers or something, I'm gonna have to watch that by myself. So my point is situational triggers as well. And then there's other things, in the moment that can happen where it's just like, I'm home alone in this moment, right? Everybody's asleep, or I'm up later because I'm working on something. Like right now, in the season that I'm in, I play basketball in Germany, and so I have practice a lot of times and training in the evening. So I come home, and whether people are already in bed yet or not, I'm like wide awake because I just finished exercise and I still have to shower, I still have to eat, and then I like to have time to wind down. So a lot of times I'll find myself up at night late by myself. So that's a very vulnerable situation to be in. So I have to know that, hey, look, I have to have a plan in place for how I'm going to spend that time ahead of time, because I know that's a situation that can be a trigger for me, and I've acted out in that space before, being home alone at night. So I know, okay, look, I've got to make some provisions ahead of time before I get to that place. There was another one that I was thinking of. I know back before I was able to get back on, like, my own smartphone, my own laptop and technology. One of the reasons personally I didn't think having those technological boundaries was that beneficial for me and my wiring is because then the moment I got on a smartphone or got on a laptop, it almost felt like I'm in this forbidden land. Like, there almost became an association with, like, I'm not supposed to be here, and it made it like where I feel like I'm not allowed to do what I'm doing, and now it's like the gates have come down and I can run free, and I need to now take advantage of the opportunity. It just became this whole subconscious difficulty for me. Whereas when it was just like, hey, it's normal. I have a laptop, I have a phone, and I just choose not to do those things with them. That for me was a much better fit for me. Now it wasn't that simple to just say, I just choose not to do those things. Lots of different tools, I guess, in place and rhythms in place in my life to help me walk that out. But all I'm saying is, second category triggers can be just situational things in our life that we have to be aware of, which are different for each person. Third category, so first one was emotional, right? Emotional triggers. Second was situational triggers. And the third category is just physical triggers. So that's going to be through our 5 senses. So, taste, touch, scent, hearing, and smell. And these are what people typically think of when they think of someone who struggles with pornography or lust. It's just like, well, gouge out your eyes, or make the eye covenant that Job talks about, and just bounce your eyes and don't look at any beautiful women. And, because that's the trigger that leads to it. And the reality is, beauty is not the primary driving force of someone who struggles with lust or sexual addiction or pornography. Beauty is, sure, the vehicle, right, through which the driving force gets there, but it's not the driving force. It's not that we're just these, donkeys in heat who just see a woman and can't control ourselves. There's a lot more complex things going on than that, especially for somebody who is trying to overcome and is intentional about, trying to walk in sexual integrity and wholeness. And so, but physical triggers, nonetheless, they still have an impact. So physical triggers, obviously, sight. He created beauty, right? And he created women to be really, really beautiful, right? One of the most beautiful things he created in the world, arguably the most beautiful thing he created in the world. And so that's a good thing that he created, right? Obviously, that beauty, that desire has been hijacked and perverted in our culture, but we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Women are beautiful. Now, we obviously have to be able to check our own thoughts and know when, hey, I'm actually in a very vulnerable place and I need to relocate, right? I can't be sitting in this coffee shop in this college town with these girls. I can't be going to this grocery store in this side of town where I know all the hot moms who are stay-at-home moms that are taking care of themselves are. Like, I got to relocate, right? So sometimes there's going to be physical triggers to our sight where we know, look, I just don't need to feed that side of the flesh. But other times we may be in a place and in a season where, man, actually, like, no, I'm able to walk in this space, in this gym, and acknowledge, like, yeah, there's a beautiful woman over there, and that's got nothing to do with me. She's beautiful. Just like that car over there is red. It's just a fact, and it is what it is, and it's got nothing to do with me. And so you have to know yourself and know where you are in your journey of whether that's true of you or not. There was a time where I had to cancel my LA Fitness membership. Now, part of that was an ultimatum from my wife, which was not a healthy thing. We can talk about that more later. But I also believed that that was what I needed eventually, because I had submitted to this idea of like, look, I need somebody else to put boundaries in place for me because I'm out of control, right? That wasn't fully true. Like I said, there was a whole dynamic going on there. But nonetheless, that became a very triggering place for me, LA Fitness, where it's like, look, I can't be there. But today, it's like, no, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out because that actually helps me in my recovery. Now, I know, hey, there's certain times when it's going to be like, hey, it's that time of day where you know there's going to be a lot of women in there. I'd rather not go at that hour because it's just harder. Like, it's just like, okay, if there's 10 beautiful women over here, half dressed, like, no matter how much resolve and connection I feel to God, I just would rather not put myself in that situation. There's no reason to try to overcome that if I don't need to, you know? So it's like, okay, I'm going to plan to go at the times that are less crowded, or, you know, just know in advance, like, look, okay, obviously this girl is over here and I'm going to go over into this direction because I'm actually feeling really tempted to look at her, and I don't want to do that because I know I'm going to feel bad afterwards, and I know that's going to be a little drop in the bucket that eventually fills up to lead to something I don't want to do. So I'm not going to go that way. So like I said, you got to know yourself to lead yourself, but we've got the physical triggers, so that's going to be through sight. It can also be through looking at yourself, right? I know a lot of guys, or I'll speak for myself on this one, there's something with shaving, right? When I shave down low, there can be a visual trigger that brings me back to thinking about pornography that I've seen and can trigger my mind to want to go into sexual fantasy land, right? And so obviously, right, I've got to break off those agreements and those, you know, soul attachments were made in connection to those videos. But I know for me, man, that can be a trigger, right? It has been in the past in terms of shaving. It can be a visual trigger of me looking at myself, right? So I'm just sharing that to say it's different for everybody, and you're not uniquely perverted or uniquely screwed up, right? Anybody who struggles with this stuff, you know, there's levels to the game, and the enemy is crafty. He is a roaring lion prowling around looking for someone to devour. So we have to watch and pray so that we do not fall into temptation. Doesn't mean we have to live our life in paranoia and fear. No, but we do have to make sure that we are active, that we are alert, that we are sober-minded, that we are casting our cares on God who cares for us, and that we are alert and we are praying. And so there's physical triggers. It can be scent, something associated with a certain perfume. Maybe a girl that you used to hook up with wears, and that can be a trigger. Obviously, hearing is a huge one. Music. Certain music I used to listen to back in my heyday in high school, you know, that can get a whole thing cooking. Of back when I used to go to those those high school parties and we were doing stuff that no high schooler should have been doing. And if I start listening to that music, yeah, there's a part of me it can just be fun, like with my boys. But there's another part that's like, nah, that opens other doors of things that it can create that it's just like, there's no reason for me to, I don't need to try to enjoy that type of music or fit into the culture that we live in, if that's not serving me. Because just like you eat food and it nourishes your body, it goes into your body. In the same way, right? We're consuming music, we're consuming things with our eyes, and it goes into our body, it goes into our soul, and it comes out in one way or another, whether it's in our words, in our actions, or in our thoughts. And so music, sound can be another big trigger. So the point of all this, right, is that we increase in our awareness. We don't need to focus on the behavior of the pornography. We all know, okay, that's a unwanted behavior. That's not a path I want to go down. But if we can start to see, man, what are the precursors? What are the triggers that lead me down that path? And as I can start getting a hold of these things, that's going to stop me from ever going down that path. And these things are going to happen because that's life, right? These emotional triggers are going to happen because that's life. You're going to be in vulnerable situations sometimes because that's life. So it's like, man, how do I make a plan for this stuff over here so that I don't end up going down this path? It's just like that analogy. I don't know if you've heard it before, but there was a bunch of people drowning in a river, and they were always having to pull bodies out at the same point in the river. And so they're looking at that point in the river, like, is it the current? Is there an undertow? What's the deal? But eventually somebody had the thought to go upstream. And as they went upstream in the river, they realized, man, that's actually where people were falling in and drowning. And we were just catching them over here. So as they went upstream and resolved the issue, then they stopped finding bodies over here. So same thing goes with our triggers, right? We don't need to focus so much over here on the behavior of pornography. What we need to focus on is over here on, man, what are the things that are leading me there? And how do I either prevent these things or proactively get the things that I need in a positive way so that these things aren't happening? So what to do when you feel triggered? So awareness is one level. It's good to be aware, but then it's like, okay, I know how I got there, but I don't want to get there again, so what do I do next time? So when we feel triggered, we got to get outside of ourselves. And so the first level of getting outside of ourselves is up, right? Going up to God, connecting with Him through prayer, calling on His name, asking for His help, quoting His word, saying the scriptures over yourself, that you have clean hands, a pure heart, renew a steadfast, willing spirit in me that would sustain me. Like, the old man has passed away. I'm a new creation in Yeshua Messiah. I have the mind of Yeshua. I no longer conform to the patterns of this world, but I'm transformed through renewing of my mind, right? Quoting scriptures, praying, contending spiritually is one of the ways. And then horizontal. So up, connection with God. Then horizontal is, I got to pick up the phone and I got to call somebody. I got to call one of my guys who understands the struggle, who knows me, who can get in it with me, and we can process. And then the other option is going inside, which is you doing some emotional processing in yourself, which that works if it's like a low level trigger. If you know, okay, I'm triggered, but I'm not headed down that path yet. I just know there's some turmoil going on in my heart that I need to deal with. Like, my wife and I had an argument earlier. I can feel that I'm unsettled. Do I want to go watch porn? No, but I can feel that I'm unsettled, and I've been down this road enough times to know if I leave this unsettled feeling unchecked, it's just the clock has started, and it's just a matter of time till I do end up going down that path. So I'm going to go through, there's a tool called the care cycle, which I'll teach in a later video, that you can use to process and work through your emotions to where you actually finish doing that and you feel the difference. Like, emotionally, you feel back to your baseline, stable self that's at peace and secure and connected. So getting outside of yourself, and I mean, that's one of the hardest things to do, is in the moment when you're triggered, because sometimes you get to that point of no return. If you imagine a curve that slopes like this, once you get to this, right, like a roller coaster, once you get to a certain tip of that roller coaster, there's no option to go but down. And the same thing can happen in this process. Once you open those doors, you're watching videos or you're scrolling or whatever, depending on what your certain triggers are or process is, you know for yourself, there's that point where, like, if you get to that point, there's no return. Like, I know for me, if I get to the point of watching videos and I turn the audio on, I'm done. I'm cooked, right? And obviously, I should have been able to get some help long before I got to that point. But there's a connection. If I turn the audio on, it's a place of no return. And so you got to know what that is for yourself. Now, obviously, I'm saying we want to catch things way over here on the trigger. So before we even get going up that hill, we want to catch things over here at the trigger. I should draw a little graph because that would make sense. But if you can visualize upward sloping line, and then what is that called? I don't know. Just imagine going up a mountain and down the other side, or a roller coaster, up and down. So we want to catch those things ahead of time. My point is, I know in theory we all know that we should do that. The hard part is executing. And like sometimes I could just be, when you're so tired that you don't have the energy to get to bed, and you're also hungry, but you're tired enough to not be able to cook. So you're tired and hungry at the same time, too hungry to go to bed, and you're too tired to get up and cook. And so you're just stuck, and you're just sitting there. This has happened to me many, many times where I'm tired, I'm just sitting on the sofa, I'm too tired to go to bed, I'm also hungry, so I don't want to go to bed, but I'm also too tired to get up and cook for myself. And in that situation, if I just sit there, I'm going to end up scrolling, right? Maybe I get a book in my hands, but if I'm hungry, I probably usually would eat first before I read. So it's like, if I just sit there, I'm going to end up scrolling. And so in that situation, maybe it's like, all right, I know where this goes. I know where this is going. If I sit here and scroll past 10, 15, 20 minutes, like it's going to be an hour later. And that could then, maybe that isn't involving pornography or anything at all, but after an hour of scrolling, when your brain's just fried and you're already hungry and tired, and then your resolve is completely gone, then the enemy can have a heyday, pick you apart, right? And there you are 2-3 hours later into the middle of the night acting out, right? I'm saying this is one who has been in that situation. And so, look, if the phone's already in your hand, in that moment, that's when we have to be able to say, okay, I'm just going to call somebody. I'm going to call somebody proactively. There's no shame because you haven't done anything, right? So you're just calling somebody because you just need help getting up and going to the next right thing. Just need help getting up to go into the kitchen and turn the frying pan on, or just to go into the bathroom and brush your teeth because you're going to go to bed. And sometimes we just need help making that one step. And if we can get that one step going in the right direction and we get that momentum, then we can make it to where we need to be. And so I would say that's the biggest thing. What to do when you are triggered is get outside of yourself. Connect with God, connect with a friend, process your emotions. And sometimes what I would say for me, it's about a 99% success rate, is if I pick up that phone and I connect with somebody who understands this struggle, who is a brother to me, who I know, man, I can keep it 100 with, I'm not going to hide, I'm going to be honest with, that's going to get me out of it. And in that, we end up connecting with God together. And we end up praying together. And then sometimes we'll even then process through those triggers and what was going on earlier that day or yesterday. And in that processing, I hear somebody say, oh, dang, bro, that's hard. That's tough. No wonder you're tempted, or no wonder you're starting to struggle. Like, yeah, that I would feel really, inadequate or humiliated if that happened to me. Like, it makes sense. And that can be really, really helpful to hear somebody else say it, because a lot of times, especially as men, we don't see ourselves the way, or have the compassion for ourselves the way we'd have compassion for somebody else. Like if we saw somebody else going through or experiencing things we go through or experience, we'd be like, dang, that was messed up, man. That's tough. Is he okay? But when we're doing it or going through something ourselves, we just think like, I'm supposed to get through it. Like, I'm good, I'm strong. Like, it's just life. Everybody deals with life. And that mindset, yeah, sure, can help us push through, but it doesn't help us actually grow and be able to receive the Father's love for ourselves, and then be able to love our neighbor as we love ourselves, because we're not loving ourselves. So I would say that's the biggest thing to do, is get outside yourself. And then in the proactive sense, right, I'm offense over defense, right? So we're not just trying to prevent all the triggers. Offense is building and establishing rhythms in your life that are going to lead you to that whole and complete in Christ that I'm talking about. So that building rhythms in your life that are going to keep you satiated, in terms of your soul. Spiritually, you're receiving the love of the Father. You're communing with Him. Physically, you're getting that stress-relieving hormones, the endorphins, the dopamine from playing a sport or from exercising. You're getting the nutrients you need for your body from eating healthy. You're processing and working through your emotions with the different tools. You're talking to friends. So building rhythms in your life that are going to be filling you up and keeping you processed in a way that's going to keep you from ever going down that path. And if you are interested in some of those tools and some of those rhythms and having somebody provide those for you and also walk with you through that process, then email me. My email is on my channel, and I can walk alongside you as your coach. So that's it for the Whole Man today. I hope you guys have a good day. And whole men, let's rise up and walk this thing out together. Peace.